There it is. There it is. There it is. What's going on, world? I'm trying to stay focused, man. I'm trying to stay focused. Your boy gets distracted. Your boy get easily distracted. Do my thing. Do my thing when I can, but I'm allowing myself energy, the space, and the time to do what I need and be who I need to be at the same time. Um, they're trying to stop me. They're trying to stop you, boy. They see me pulling up. They know what I'm doing, and they don't want that. They see me pulling up. They know what I'm doing. They don't want that. But I tell you what, bruh. When they tune in, they gonna know I found that shit. I found that shit. You know? So let's see. Hold on. Are we on? TTH 242. Let's see if we can make it work. I don't even know if this worked. Look like it does. That shit thin as hell. Pause. TTH 242, man. You can barely see that shit. But we have to throw it up just to say we threw it up. Your boy hearing them sounds. I be known. Like I said, they keeping tabs on me. I'm keeping tabs on them too. I'm watching it too. Let me look at the screen. You can barely see that shit. TTH 242. Damn. Well, that's the thing, man. It's like, what's the point? That's what it's coming to. So that's what it's coming to. Like, what's the point? So let's clean it up and then save us the time and energy. While we here, while we at it. Save some time, save some energy. While we at it. It's easily taken care of, I'm gonna have to start bringing my own I'm trying to do it the cheapest way possible, but sometimes the best thing to do is to invest in yourself. Best thing to do is invest in yourself. I've been thinking about that stuff. I'd be looking across the room, I'd be looking across the way, the hallway and all that. I'd be scoping through the window pane and like the whatever else they got going on. I'd be seeing the lights. When the lights shift and the light changes, I'd be knowing. I'd be coming through in and out. Like I'd be knowing, and Anyway, neither here nor there, man. This is being recorded. Same day and time. I did my little mic test for I'll tell somebody else. For the microphone setup. It's as good as I'm gonna get it. And we killed that coffee. They give me that made from bamboo, compostable, eco-friendly cup. Thing is, like, the coffee, when it starts swishing around, it builds up and it starts to leak out and like just spill on my hand, and I'm like, it gets annoying. But it's good because the regular cups that people serve, they get that wax. It's like a weird wax inside of the cup, and when you mix that with like hot water, and you're just burning extra wax, and you're just drinking a waxy drink. So you got to know your cups. It's a weird thing, man. I'm born and raised in Seattle, so it's really interesting. I'm born and raised in Seattle, so the coffee culture is a thing here. And I like going to mom and pop coffee shops. I like going to specific ones like that because I'm learning about I learned this from shout out to this guy Masa. Friends, he's Mars' friend, but I met him through Mars, and he was breaking down how you get some coffee beans, some whole beans, and from the moment you start to grind it yourself, there's a process in which it begins to oxidize or whatever. And I couldn't even define oxidizing for you. I couldn't even define it. Every time I hear about oxidizing, it's more so about Beyblades that look cemented and look like they're ancient because they've been through so many battles. They look cemented and shit. But I just think about oxidization, if that's correct. Oxidizing, if you will. You know, it look like something that's just been exposed to the elements for years and centuries, right? But you get what I'm trying to say. Air being released and whatnot. Air being released and finally being opened up to air exposure, if you will. But there's an oxidation, to my understanding, that happens with the whole beans the moment they're being crushed and grinded. So it's best to have beans and to do it yourself. But like I said, you go to mom and pop joints, go to these smaller coffee shops, not the big ones. You don't go to these big ones, but you go there and then you start talking to these people, man. Start learning about what kind of grinds they have, what kind of beans they have. And the thing about it is, like, when you start having these things, you start learning about it, you start applying it. You know, the beautiful thing about it is, like, the process of that, like something just more natural at the house, it costs you less than $4 to $5 to do it yourself. You know, understand, to do a drip coffee of a 12 ounce or a 16. Some people put it in like a tumbler or like a mug, and that'll give you about like 16 ounces about or so, you know. And the process of that, I need more of that, you know. So I like going to these mom and pop joints, you know. Like I said this in the previous video. I really like, because I went to that spot, my normal spot, before I arrived here, and the lady over there, it's her restaurant, it's her cafe, you know, because she asked for my name for the order, and I was like, I never got your name, and then she said, whoop whoop, and I ain't gonna say what the name is, I ain't gonna put her on blast. And I was like, damn, so this is your restaurant, this is yours? She's like, yep. And I was like, okay, that's good to know. But the point I was making was, she was buying so much time because she saw me with, you know, boom, I had the Devin Witherspoon jersey. She saw the Seahawks hat. She just saw me there, you know what I'm saying? We got the, come on, man, we got the whole fit going on, bro. We got the whole fit going on. You already know. She saw that. Now, the point I'm making is this. She was just asking me, she took time. She asked me about the Seahawks game, you know, Niners game today. She was just talking to me. She was asking how I was doing, how's my day going, what I got planned, all this stuff. And I'm just thinking, like, it's interesting. But if you look at the whole restaurant, there were so many people coming in and out. One to sit down and eat, and some to get orders and just go. So she was really just buying time for her barista, because they were like they're about like a 2.5. I don't know if I seen a third person in the background, but they had 2 people working the cafe that morning. It was just 2 of them busting orders out, taking their time, but moving as fast as they can at the same time. And she was really buying her barista time, because there was a handful of people that got in line behind me, but there was like 2 groups of 3 people ahead of me that were waiting for their stuff. And I was like, listen, I'm in no rush. I'll just be chilling. You know, they got the these little decorations around the cafe, so I'm just over here playing with shit. But I just thought that was dope. You know, come to find out, the reason why she was talking to me is, one, she genuinely likes speaking to me and just talking to people in the area that are regulars, if you will, like regular people that she normally sees. She likes to talk with them and get to know them a little better. That's one thing. And then the second aspect was, she was buying time for her coworker, someone that works for her, I should say, and, you know, checking in with me, just checking how I was doing. And come to find out, that's the owner of the restaurant, like the owner, and that's her name on. I was like, that's just dope. You know what I'm saying? It was just dope to me. I was really hyped about that. And the last time I had that was actually, I was in the U District, and there's a spot called Al's, and I was just like, I'd always go there to get video games, you know, buying video games, selling video games, trying to get the best price, buying and flipping. They even have porn DVDs over there, so I'd find some porn DVDs. I'd buy that shit. I'd be like, yo, I gotta get this one. I know this one right here. I'm familiar with her work, but I just never seen the full video. So I'll be buying them porn DVDs. And they know what I'll be doing out there. So anyway, I'm just buying that shit. Like legendary shit. Because, you know, porn is getting cracked down on. You know, you living in Texas, Florida, whatever, just different little states and shit. They're starting to bar that shit. You can't go to Pornhub. You can't go to porn websites. You got to be 18 up for certain things. They started having certain restrictions. I'm like, getting these DVDs and magazines is going to be like relics. So that might be the new hustle. That might be the new thing right there. Like, ooh, I got that Genevieve Jolie, bruh. And if I ain't got that, I got that, what do you call this? I got that, what do you call this shit? The, Maya Gates. You know what I'm saying? We got those going on. whoever else was in there. Puma Suede was in there. Shit like that, you know. I'd be fine with those, man. But there it is, man. You know, a little update on just where my mental's at. You know, we trying to do. You know, like I said, we're not necessarily doing university mindset anymore, but we're gonna try to stay focused with these right here. Do these, do these, man. This is that 242, 241. This was actually the 240. The thing about 241 was I was planning to the subject matter I had coming up. I don't even know what I'm gonna name this until later. The subject matter though I had coming up for 241, I ended up just bantering for like 20-30 minutes, and I realized I'm just gonna make this back to the essence, because this is the original essence of the Truancy Hour. We kind of just sit around, banter, whatever's on my mind, and flow from there. But you know, we start off with university mindset, then we get the subject line. But I feel like I just had a lot going on throughout the week that I thought about, you know, I questioned and things like that, and I just wanted to kind of speak and expound on it. So it's kind of nice how that played out. So I was really happy about just being able to kind of just free flow speaking wise. But anyway, what was reserved for 241, I pushed up to 242, which is right now. Check this out, man. Let's talk about the topics at hand, man. First thing I thought about was actually 4 notes in this one section. You know, I'm looking at my old notes from older episodes, and I'm realizing I had a lot of different subjects that I touched base on. I don't understand how each of them connected, and I don't really understand, you know, like how it went from this to that and the third. But I grabbed 2 specific notes that seemed to make a lot of sense that were right in the middle. So the beginning note didn't really make much sense to me. I probably was trying to create something, speak on something metaphorically at the time that for whatever reason right now I can't grasp it right now. I just don't understand what it was. And then the ending note, I was like, I'll probably leave that alone, and maybe we'll find that in the future. But these are old notes that I have done, as in, you know, when I did Truancy Hour as an audio form. Truancy Hour used to be audio form. I used to walk around, kind of just free flow, and then from there I would kind of just do the thing. But for these two, for the 2 that I have here, and just in the future, like when you hear me talk about all these different subject matters and stuff, if I'm not free flowing or whatever, a lot of these are probably going to be like from notes that I had taken throughout the week. And I feel like maybe I want to speak on this right now. Let's see if I can do about 40 to 50 minutes on it. And if it's not that, it'll be like an old subject matter that I want to touch base back on. So these ones are going to be, the point I'm making with this is like, whatever my mindset was during the audio version is not going to be what I'm going to say right now. I'm taking the subject matter of these notes. I'm going to expound on them, but it won't be whatever that was. If anyone was ever in tune to the audio stuff, just understand these are just old kind of things that are being touched base back on, being touched on again or whatever. I don't know. Pause. That's crazy. But check this out, man. First note I wrote was just being a kid when you're grown. Hear me out. Being a kid when you're grown because you were doing grown shit as a kid. All right. Being a kid when you're grown because you were doing grown shit as a kid. I could speak to this personally, and that there's a reason why I wanted to make that the beginning of this. You know, like I said, we just talked about all that beginning shit just to get here. And you know, growing up, for me at least, everyone's a little different. But you know, for me, I say this all the time, man. You know, from the time I was around 1 year old. Well, just let me say this, right? First of all, my grandma died 2 months before I was born. So it was really just my mom, dad, and grandpa. And then there was another lady who was actually relatives to some extended family that lived like 2 blocks down the street. And they said, hey, if you guys got a space in your house, can she live with you guys? We're like, cool, sure. So I had this older lady in our house. I always thought she was my grandma, and she always loved me and treated me like a grandma. She never put her hands on me. She just always looked out for me. She always comforted me, and she fed me. And just like, yeah, she can live here. I mean, you know, the way she wanted to pay her pay for her stay, because you know, I don't think my grandpa was even charging her. I don't think my grandma was even charging her for that matter, because my grandma technically owned both properties, you know, our house and the house next door. So, you know, it's really interesting. Or like my grandma, as in my grandpa's sister, not my grandpa's wife who had passed away. But anyway, this other lady, she lived with us, and it's really interesting because you know she looked after me a lot. But anyway, what I'm saying is, you know, I was born '93, and by the time I was 1, my grandpa was forced to retire. You know, he finally got his 3rd stroke, to my understanding. Man got his third stroke, and he was pretty much just had to stay at the house. His whole left side was more or less paralyzed, but he would always force his right body to drag his left body. You know what I'm saying? So his left arm was just like a stiff, muscled side, and he would use it to kind of just prop up and hold certain things. He would just force his body to do shit, but he was technically paralyzed on the left side, so it was kind of crazy. So that's like 94 ish. Now, fast forward to about 2000, if not '01, I'm probably like 7 to 8 around that time. And my mom is forced to retire. So the point I'm making is that these are two incomes in my household that are forced to retire and they no longer are working. They're just handicapped now. And mind you, I'm not even double digits yet. But the point I'm making is that during this time period, whether I was walking in the street to the grocery store with my grandpa, sorry, the corner store, and the corner store, that specific one, we used to go over there to the corner store, and that shit would always get robbed and shot at and all this shit until they started changing ownership. Excuse me. So it's really interesting. Now, how do I explain this? The thing that was interesting to me that I didn't realize was, culturally, it was like, hey, man, just take care of your elders, take care of your family. Now, mind you, growing up, it was tough because it was like, all right, I'm already getting my ass whooped every day by like my family members, mom, dad, grandpa, etc., brother, etc. And then, like, naturally, there's a level of resentment, not necessarily fear, but a level of resentment. And then all of a sudden, now I have to take care of half of them. You understand? So like we're all pitching in, doing our best to look after them. But I remember just being a kid and then having to what's it called? Like my mom would she would be bedridden in the fucking living room, just watching TV, just bedridden, sitting on the couch, just laying on the couch all day because she can't really move. She got her osteoporosis was so bad that like her body needs to kind of recover and adjust to like newer diets and shit like that before she can start moving again. And at some point she was moving around with a cane. So if you do the math on that, it's like, let me see. She was like in her mid 40s or mid to late 40s, already forced to retire, and her body just kind of gave out. The thing about it was because she couldn't really leave the living room without hurting her body and her bones. She had a what do you call those? Like the little buckets you shit and piss in. So she's just in the middle of the living room with all of us, just shitting and pissing in front of all of us in the side of this bucket. And as a little kid, I had to constantly go downstairs, throw it out, and then bring it back upstairs and then put it back in the thing, wash my hands and all this shit. You know what I'm saying? So like I said, around 7 or 8 years old, I'm forced to be a caretaker for my mom. Grandpa, he's very independent, but I always felt the need to look out for him. But there's always these responsibilities. Now, as a kid, the point I'm making is I didn't quite understand why I had so many, frustrations as a kid. I actually started listening to I want to say it was the 85 South show. 85 South. They were on Still 400 podcast. Manny Fresh and Juvenile. They got the Still 400 podcast, and then 85 South was on there. And I want to say Chico, it probably was Chico Bean if I remember the voice correctly, was speaking on one of the things that Juvenile had asked. It's like, one thing I want to present as a question is there anyone you feel the need to apologize to or apologize for or whatever? It doesn't have to be too serious or too deep, but I always want to introduce that to all of our guests, or introduce that question to all of our guests, and give them opportunity to apologize to anyone right now if you feel like you need to get something off your chest. And I want to say Chico Bean or somebody else. Pretty sure it's him, could be someone else. But he said specifically, I want to apologize to my mom, rest in peace to her, but apologize to her where it's like, all that fucking anger and frustration as a kid, I didn't understand that I was being forced to be responsible. I was supposed to be, I'm seeing everyone else my age just living life as kids and young men and shit, having fun and all that. And then I was forced to be responsible because of our predicament. But it prepared me for the life to come, the life we're living now. And I'm doing better than a lot of people simply because I had that upbringing, and I didn't know it was preparing me for that. But I hope she forgives me for that frustration. That's kind of how he said it. Something along those lines of just wanting to be forgiven for being a frustrated kid. And for me, it's like I was listening to that and I was like, man, that ain't that man's fault. That ain't that young man's fault, because And I started to relate to it. I started thinking like, damn, it's not his fault that he was lashing out and just being constantly. Because I remember being a kid like that. I remember me and my brother always being mad about some shit, always being angry about some shit, always being frustrated about having to do some shit, take care of some shit. Let me walk off and adjust these chairs real quick. I think it's good actually. Never mind. I don't need to do anything. But constantly just being frustrated, like, why the fuck do we have to do this and then do that and then be here for this and be here for that? And it was, yeah, we were being taught some responsibilities and shit, but at the same time, just being subjected to having to take care of your own mom's, shit, and then having to like fuck, like literally her literal shit and piss, and then there's a time period where like both my mom and dad were in the hospital. They could have died. They almost were just close to dying. And then my grandpa got back from the hospital because he was admitted, but he came back. He's like, "Come on, guys, we're gonna have to wash and dry our own clothes real quick." And I'm young, going through all this, and I'm just figuring out how to wash and dry my own clothes. And if I needed to, they're teaching me early how to cook for myself. And I remember just being frustrated, like, I don't mind learning this shit. I'm just mad at the reason why I'm being taught this shit because people might die. You know. So that's what I'm saying is like my grandpa. Like I said, he ended up losing his job, so he's no longer working, getting retirement stuff. My mom, she's forced to retire, but she's getting retirement money or like the little, they give you like little checks or whatever, little compensation medical stuff, depending on how many years you work and like medical leave shit, just like little benefits or whatever from the state or like the country or whatever. And then my dad is just the only person working. He's the breadwinner. So it's like, you know, it's just frustrating. So it's just like you can imagine like around that time period, I'm wanting to be this what do you call this? I'm like in fifth grade, and I'm just thinking like, who do I gotta knock out to make some money? What can I sell? I'm just over here looking at all my stuffed animals, toys, Pokemon cards, all that shit, trying to make some money off of it. Yu-Gi-Oh cards, just trying to make some money selling that stuff, man. Just setting up a table outside of the house. House was like right next to a hospital, across the street from a hospital. So we had a decent amount of traffic and people coming in. There was a DSHS and a food bank across the street. Decent amount of traffic of people coming in and out. And it's just like, I just wanted to make some money. I'm over here like 12 years old trying to apply for McDonald's, and it's like, bro, you got to be like 16, bro. You're gonna need like a worker's waiver or something, but maybe we can make something happen. I was like, my dad's literally the only person in the house right now making this money. So it's just like that feeling has always been on me. It's always befell me or whatever, whatever, however you want to look at it. It's never been easy. I wanted to be a kid like everyone else, man, but you're doing grown shit. Like you're thinking about the long run. I'm constantly thinking about the long run. Like, man, what can I do now to prepare me for something so I can be qualified for something in the future? I just got to be strong now. So if I go into the workforce, the labor force, I can get a job. I can move things around. I can be in a warehouse or whatever. Something. I'm just thinking like that. I'm just thinking like that. You know, very frustrating, very painful. Mentally. But like I said, back to the Chico Bean thing, I'm just sitting there listening to them speak about it, and I'm like, yeah, that is crazy because I understand that feeling, man. Like I like, there's no reason for him to feel bad about it. And sometimes I wonder, in behalf of him and myself, it's like, what were our parents feeling like? Did they feel very inadequate at the fact that we were asked to be, you know, less or like more than kids? We're just trying to be kids, but we were asked to be more than kids, things like that. It's really interesting, man. Really interesting. So that shit really, I don't know. It kind of hit me a little bit where I was like, I really had to think about that sometimes. I had to think about that some days. You know, it really hit me in a different type of way. Threw me off a little bit. Next note, I don't want to say less important, but now we're getting into once you have a level of stability, a different level of quality, if you will, different level of stability, quality, and what would you call this? Like a, how do you say, bro? Creeping, man. That's my guy, but he creeping. That's my guy, but he creeping. Come on through. Can you see him? Can you see him through the? Let me see. Can't even. He was over there though, but you can't even see him, bro. The four pillars of life, man. You know my four pillars of life. For me personally, my own trifecta, if you will, is God, love, and nature. That's just for me personally. I will say on a second note, though, or like in another regard, we also have to be practical. There's practical stuff that people kind of need to tap into, and they need to be aware of, if you will. They need to be tapped into it. They need to be aware of it. Here's the practical thing, man. Money, housing, transportation. That's three. It's always a matter of three, but I wanted to do four pillars. I wanted to do four legs of a table, if you will, just four legs in general. Because sometimes you have four legs, like hind legs. You have hind legs and four legs, right? The ones up front. But just hear me out. Four legs of a table. What's the four pillars? What are the things that keep the table up? It's one thing to put stuff on the table. You're putting food on the table. You're putting food for thought on the table. But what keeps the table up? What are the four pillars? Money, housing, transportation. The fourth one that goes unrecognized, but sometimes is the weakest leg, is respect. This is a strange one, man. Money, housing, transportation, and respect. I had a conversation with this dude I used to work with. It's funny because I always have like a decent amount of bad things to say about him, but at the same time, I always take away the good stuff from the conversations. He wasn't the greatest person, just in general. There's a lot of parts about him and aspects about him that are, if I'm being honest, they're very frustrating. But at the same time, I'm like, if I'm identifying that, what's so frustrating about him and what's so negative about him, I have to examine myself, because I'm probably just really getting a reflection of how I am, where I'm speaking a little out of turn or out of hand, because that was my issue with him. Was it's like, bro, it ain't your place to speak about these certain things, but you getting real comfortable talking about certain shit, and it would rub people the wrong way. And he would just say, he would say what was on his mind. He didn't give a fuck, and that's not a bad thing, saying what's on your mind. But it was like, bro, it ain't your place to talk about this. You're talking real crazy and negative about this thing. You don't know nothing about it. I'll give you an example. He had the nerve to always speak about my neighborhood where I grew up at. And I grew up in the hood here in Seattle, but he always compared it like, oh yeah, that got nothing on Compton. Have you seen Pittsburgh? Have you seen that? My thing is like, bro, all love and respect to Compton, Pittsburgh, and all them places that you visited. But remember, whether it's my neighborhood or that neighborhood, you just a visitor. You understand? I thought about it. I was like, the shit that we going through is relative to us. It's still the same thing, man. Because people from this area, we're still getting a level of harassment from each other and the police. You understand? We're still dealing with that type of fucked upness and subjugation, if you will. We're still dealing with that shit. So that was my thing, was like, dude wasn't from none of those areas, but just because you had a chance to travel through it, and he's a white dude, so when you travel through that shit, people are gonna get, they're gonna keep their hands off of you, because nobody needs no lawsuits, nobody needs no cops coming through because a white kid got beat up or shot. Nobody needs that shit. So it's like, bro, you got through with the privilege your whole life, but you took this privilege to observe other places just to judge them and compare them, and you have nothing to do with any of those places because you didn't come up like that. You didn't grow up in any of those environments. Brother Ali said this. Brother Ali is a white dude, but he's an albino white dude, and he said this too, man, a long time ago on that The Truth. Jake One, he's like, you ain't grew in this environment, so who are you to comment? It's that simple. So that was my main thing with bruh. He was very frustrating, but I was like, you know what, man? If I'm identifying that shit within him, I'm probably seeing, and I'm seeing how hectic it is and how much it works me up a little bit. I realize I'm probably in the same boat. I probably talk about some shit that I shouldn't be talking about. Who the fuck knows? But it just had me thinking, like, I was really frustrated speaking with him. Anyway, one of the things we spoke about, and I started to adapt this for the four pillars of life, excuse me, because I just wanted it to be four. Three is good, but the four pillars. But let's talk about the three, because me and him had this conversation. We kind of spoke about young adults, doing their best in life, or just trying in general, or just sometimes you just start to realize where you're at. You know what I mean? There's like three power levels. One of the first three is, you know, it's like time, health, and wealth. You know what I mean? So when you're a kid, it's like you have all the time in the world and you have all your health, but you have no wealth. When you start getting to like teenage years and 20s and stuff like that, it's like you got, what is it? You got no time, but you have health and wealth because you're making money. You know what I mean? When you're like a young adult working and stuff. But after adulthood, when you're like an elder, it's like you got all the time in the world now because you're probably pretty much retired and you got some wealth, but then your health is deteriorated. That's one of the trifectas. A simple thing to kind of just gauge where people are at. And this is more of the, success factor of just moving forward and just propelling yourself. That's one word we're going to say is just propelling. It's money, housing, and transportation. The way I look at it is like a lot of people just have a lot of money to maneuver. See, I've never had my own housing. I don't pay rent at any place. I don't lease anywhere. I don't own a home. I don't lease anywhere. I don't rent anywhere. I've never had my own space. Like I've always lived under someone else's roof. So I don't win. I don't have any points there. I've never had a car. I've always used public transportation to get around. So I'm at the whim of public transportation. I'm still transporting around. We have decent public transportation in my city. But to say I own something or I have something that can get me around whenever I want to, I just got to pay for parking and shit if necessary. I don't have my own car basically. Now, money, I've always had a good amount of that. So I was excelling so much in that regard that it's like, I mean, if needed, I can go somewhere in another city and just be in a hotel for like a week. We had money like that because, like I said, I was under someone else's roof. So I was saving on my money. So I had excess amounts. I didn't have any car payments to deal with because I never had a car. So I had extra money just to my name. And I would just use that extra money to constantly invest. The investing would compound, compound, compound. And I just had a decent amount of money for my age in my mid 20s to late 20s. I had like 5 figures just sitting around, just from investment stuff. But I put a lot of that into, burying my mom properly and taking care of my own mental health. So I pretty much lost it all. So I'm in super debt right now, which is funny because I was over here living my life, having fun, just, using credit cards and shit. I don't recommend it, but I'm just telling you like where I fucked up. But in my mind, I didn't fuck up. I was just like, I don't care. You give me a credit card, you raise the limit, I'm going to use the limit. And here I am paying the cost of it, but it is what it is. We're just going to pay it back over time. I don't care. So here's a point I'm making. Some people, they don't have that much money or capital to spend because a lot of it goes into the rent of the house. And they're just utilizing, you know, like all your money. Like when you live in a place like here, especially on the West Coast, a lot of your wages just go to your rent. Cost of living is so fucking high. So a lot of young people, their cost of living is just like, damn, ain't much you can do. Ain't much you could do. You understand? So a lot of people just have one or the other. A lot of people don't have much of them. A lot of people be living at their parents' house, but at least they got their own car. That's the big thing too. It's like, yeah, I'm still living with my parents. I got a decent job. Most of my money goes to car payments. Most of my money goes to, my hobby or just having fun on the weekends, getting something to eat. Some people drink, so they go out to, get drinks and they eat and stuff. So that's where their money goes. That's how they spend it. It's just, you understand? So there's no right or wrong. It's just some people excel in one or the other. I had a friend of mine, man. He's going through a lot of shit. He actually was low key in debt because he ended up going to college, trying to be a lawyer. And but he got his own car. He was getting paid so well that he got his own car. And like, he's like, I'm getting paid well. Fuck it, I'm gonna get one of the nicest cars I can get. But the payments per month is a lot. Then he got his own spot, but the payments per month was a lot. So he had the money coming in, and all the stress from all of that started to weigh down on him, man. He started to hit him a certain way, where he was telling me, he's like, my sleep started getting affected. I couldn't even show up to the job on time. I had so many late notices where they're like, hey, man, we're gonna start giving you warnings. The warnings are starting to run out. We're gonna have to start firing you soon if we don't come up with something or try to figure out what's wrong with you. And he ended up having to just quit the job. He was like, honestly, bro, I'm doing the most trying to balance out 2 jobs just to pay off all this shit. I signed up for all this shit. This is my choice that I, you know, got this particular job, got this particular whatever. But it's starting to cost him his health. You know, started to cost a man his health. Give me 1 second, man. I know that ain't my shoe. I know that ain't my shoe. But I tell you what. That's crazy. I'm going to tell you all in a second. Yo. I'm going to tell you all in a second. Ain't no way. Ain't no way. Yo, I'm thinking that's my shoe. But I've been in here the whole time. It's smelling like massive dookie up in this bitch, man. Like where? Where'd that come from? I'm looking out the window like, what's that? Coming from this direction? Hold on. How is that coming through though? It might just be some pipeline shit, but how was that like whatever is nearby? I'm trying to think because it got ventilation coming through. Whatever's above or nearby or below, ventilation is bringing some funky ass shit through this room right now in this particular spot. That's terrible. Ain't that, bro. I smell perfume and lotion from the lady I was hugging earlier. That's it. I'm trying to. Is that this, bro? Am I kicking up dust and dirt on the rug right here? That might be it. I couldn't tell you. That's fucking wild. My nose caught a whiff of that. I'm like, where's that coming from? I'm trying to think like, am I letting off silent farts? Is that me doing that? I don't know. That's crazy. That's crazy. I'm gonna keep all that in. I ain't got time to be editing shit. That shit was smelling funky for a second. 4 pillars of life, man. Money, housing, and transportation. You know you're doing well, bro. If you a young man, you a young person. You know what I'm saying? A young person in your 20s, especially. When you start getting to the 30s, you got to really start thinking about shit. Yo, I'm catching a whiff of that. Hold on. Is that my breath, dog? I'm chewing gum. I don't know if that's me. That's crazy as hell, dog. I'm telling you, bro. I'm catching a whiff of something. That's wild as hell. I don't know, man. I don't know, bro. Let me find out some stinky ass person right above here right now is looking down at me. Let me find out. Stinky ass person nearby. I'm about to open this side door right here and find out. I'm about to go next door right there and find out. Somebody taking a shit on the side of the building or on the other room next door. I don't know. Man, you in your 20s, bro? If you got 2 of those things unlocked, you good. 2 is always better than 1. 2 is always better than 1. So think about that. If you had some capital and a reliable car, but you're still under someone's roof, you good money. Because now at that point, you could just slowly build up and then finally get out there. And if you need to start renting on your own, or if you even need to start to get your first property, you'd get there. And you moving around. That's the thing. When you have a car, you could drive around and bust moves, man. You busted moves from, you know what I'm saying, from county to county, city to city, town to town, just going through the highways, freeways, and just doing what you got to do in your little section of town. Even moving around, like just driving yourself from the house to the post office, doing some eBay related stuff, some e-commerce. You can really make that happen. You can really make that happen. I don't know, man. That funky ass shit, it might be me, man. I don't know if I'm just having like little silent farts on the low. It might just be that. Let me see. I'm gonna try to let out slow, small farts here and there, bro. If you hear it on mic, man, you gonna know. Same thing, man. You got no capital, but you paying off your own rent, and you got a car. That means you still got motion going on. You understand? You can peacefully pay off your rent. All your money's going to taking care of the rent. You got good housing, and you got a good car. As long as you got that, and that's being taken care of, you can worry about the capital now. You understand? When you got 2 out of 3 unlocked, You could. Some people, man, they got no car, but they paying for their own spot. They paying for their own spot, and they got some good capital. They got good money coming in, and they paying for their own spot. They got their own spot they're living in. But you got no transportation. You got, you're just at the whim of public transportation, or you walking or you're biking places. And sometimes that's by choice. That's the thing about transportation. Transportation out of all these is technically is the one by choice. To not have any capital, to not have any money is the roughest. You know what I mean? Because that means all your money is going to something, or you have nothing going on at all. You know what I mean? Here's the thing, man. I wanted to speak about the 4 pillars because the 4th one I said was respect. The reason why I say it's respect is because you got some guys that can't balance none of that shit, but they're so respectable that motherfuckers just put money in their hand and take care of them. Now, hear me out. You got to know who you are, and you can't pretend. Because there's some people who would do some shit. Like, think about this, right? You got some dudes. They with all the business, man. They with all the business. They was out there doing the work, doing the dirty, doing the work in the streets, however you want to put it. They go to jail. They ain't got shit to their name. They come back home. People put money in their hand. They're putting chains in their hand. They're giving them opportunities. Man, let's work on it. Let's make sure you get a car. Let's make sure you got a place to stay at. They get taken care of because they put the work in. So they ain't got to worry about money, housing, transportation. They so deep and connected, and they so down with the cause of whatever that hood shit, that street shit was, or as soon as they get home, they get taken care of. Other people are like that too. There's a rich thing, some rich people ain't shit. They never did nothing in their life, but they'll always be taken care of. It's like that too, because the streets be having money. You got to remember. Now, here's the thing, right? You got to be honest about who you are. Stop pretending. Some people hear that shit and think they're really that guy. But you got to remember, there's a lot of people right now to this day that have done some of the same shit that a lot of these, I would use like a rapper as an example. They've done a lot of the same illegal shit or whatever as another rapper, but they lack the respect. Yeah, you out here doing dirt. Yeah, you living the life, the street life, if you will. But at the same time, you're not respectable. Something about you. Yeah, you're doing the same type of dirt. You're doing the same type of activities. You're getting by the same type of way, but you are not respectable. You got to know right from wrong. You got to know this from that. You understand? So that's what I'm saying. People got to be honest with themselves. There's some people who just their whole life, they've just been gone. You know what I'm saying? Whether they held a conversation with somebody, whether they looked out for somebody a certain way, some people have been taken care of through respect and with respect their whole life, whole career, etc. Their whole life. You've been taken care of respectfully because you're a respectable person. So everybody's always going to look out for you. You're such a respectable person. You're so down with people. A lot of times loyalty can be in this thing, right? You've been so loyal to somebody your whole life, but you can't operate. You can't get money the same way the highest person can in your camp or in your area. You can't house yourself the same way someone who got out did. You can't get a car the way someone in your area, your camp or whatever, got their car. But because you was loyal and respectable to a certain individual, they're gonna make sure you're always laced. They're gonna make sure you always got what you need to have, They're gonna make sure, bro, don't even worry about it. I'll make sure you get your own apartment. I'll pay for that shit. You good. I always wanted to be the guy to do that. I always wanted to be rich enough to be like, you know what, man, I just want to get an apartment, a couple, duplexes or townhomes and shit, and just house my friends. I'm like, don't worry about it, man. Just live here. If y'all need food, we'll figure it out. But just live here, man. Just have this as a place to live and just create the art, and then we'll push the art out there later, and we'll get the ball rolling for you. We'll get your finances going, But just give people the necessities, right? Food, clothing, and shelter. Start them off with something basic, and then once they get their mind right, they can start hustling themselves. I always want to be the person to provide that. I never been in that position. Like I said, I always dealt with some setbacks in life. So we're going to try to get it right in the next couple months and year right here, Get right back on track. However that look like, whatever it looks like, however it plays out, we're going to make sure that happens. So that's what I'm on. Actually, let me smell the squirt bottle. Pause. No, it ain't that. It's not this, bro. Hold on. It ain't this. It ain't these, bro. It's not none of these. I don't know where it's coming from. It might just be me. Ain't nobody else here but me, so it might just be me on some funky shit. We keeping it funky, P-funk. Yeah, man. 4 pillars. Because you got to think, right? Even if you had a job, or let's say you had good credit. If you had good credit, you got to look at it this way too. Good credit is like, hey, you got respectably, you got some respectable credit. Like you over 700, you over 800, whatever. You know what I'm saying? They look at that shit and be like, honestly, bro, you missed a payment. You good. I mean, you've always been on time with us. You've always been good. So having good credit sometimes, having good car payment, just consistency, housing payment consistency, always showing up to your job consistency, showing up, doing the job, being a good worker, being accounted for, being respected and stuff. That'll take you a long way. So respect isn't always a street thing. Like the things that get you the money, the housing, the transportation, all those things consider. If you're respectable at your job, occupation, you understand? Job, occupation, and just like what it is you're doing, you can retain what it is you have. My last job, they paid me so well. I was making so much money, especially doing all this overtime. It's so much overtime. You understand, for them. And the thing about it was, okay, I got all this overtime going on, making that happen. I wanted to quit the job. I told him exactly. I was open and honest about it. I was like, bro, you're such a good worker. I hate that you're quitting on the spot. How can we keep you? Who's bothering you? Can we stop the person that's bothering you? We can make that go away. We can take care of this person. We can do this just to keep you here. I was like, you're not wrong, but just as a man, I know I'm going to clock into work, and I'm going to want to clock someone in the head if they talk to me crazy. Because before I'm a worker and a coworker and an employee, I'm a man first. I'm a human being first. And I really want to hurt this person. But every time I see them, I ain't going to lie. I'm still saying good morning like a normal person. But then every now and again, they got some shit that's getting under my skin for some reason. And I realized, man, I don't hate this person if I could still say good morning to them. However, the fact that I'm angry and I feel like he's the person I need to whoop, the ass I need to whoop today, the person I need to fuck up today, beat their ass balls, there's probably something deeper going on. The fact that I kept it real honest with them, my regional managers and, the upper managers and stuff, because I kept it so honest with them, they're like, I'm happy you're being honest. And, if you need the time to take, if you need to really take that time away for yourself and take care of yourself, I hope the best for you. The thing about it was I was quitting on the spot that day. That was my plan. And I let them know like a day in advance. And I was like, I don't know, I might talk to my coworker about it. I'm gonna talk to a few of them about it. I just need to stop right now. And like 2 of them actually all of them respected. All my coworkers respected it. And then, like I said, the regional manager was like, listen, we're supposed to bar you. We're supposed to bar you from ever working with us again. But because you've been such a good worker, you've been very communicative, and you told us the exact truth of why, and you're not sugarcoating it. Because the thing about it was they were willing to give me a month to 3 months of mental health leave. Like, we can still pay you for a month or 3 months of mental health leave. I was like, I can't even take the money of mental health leave in good health, knowing that I want to quit and I'm going to want to come back and quit anyway. And they were willing to offer me that. So what they ended up doing for me on a respect level, which this is when I realized that they respected me, and I should have, to be respected and loved like that is a good feeling. This is what they did for me, man. They're like, listen, he told me this in the meeting when I was leaving. They're like, listen, man, we're supposed to bar you because you're supposed to give us a 2 weeks notice, so that way we can rehire you at this company. But because you're not doing that, we're not supposed, we're supposed to bar you from ever coming back to this job. But because you've been so good to us, the door is open, and whenever you want to come back, you can always come back to us. You've always been good to us. You've always been communicative with it. That's what they told me. So they said all these things to me. Now, mind you, after I leave, I feel a little more free, a little, just take a week off and kind of just sit in bed for a while and just kind of just whatever, collect my thoughts. And I start thinking to myself, and I'm just like, man, hopefully I made the best decision. And, to this day, I think I did. I think I really did. It's just taking some adjusting still. It's interesting because, I was waiting for checks, because it's like, okay, I'm still getting a check here, and then I'm going to get a second check because of this particular work week. So there was 2 checks I was going to receive. And then I ended up getting, randomly, I was checking my bank account to see how much I had to spare. Come to find out, they randomly just sent me like $5,000 or something. Now I'm confused. I'm like, what the fuck is this? So I text my regional manager like, hey, I just want to make sure that the last payment you guys sent me was accurate, and you guys didn't, like, I don't know why I got this. This is a lot. Like, this is way more than I was making during my. This was like a month or a month and a half's worth of pay or something like that. I can't really do the math right now. It's about a month and a no, it's something like that. Yeah, it was a lot of money, and I'm just looking at it like, what the fuck is this? Is that right? I was like, probably a little more than that. Probably a lot more than that. 5,000. Yeah, 5,000 is a lot more than that. And I text her. I'm like, what is this? Like, why are you sending me this much money? And she's like, oh, we cashed out your sick time and vacation time that you had left over. I was like, yeah, you deserve that. You deserve to have that. So they did me a solid, because normally, if you don't use your sick time or your vacation time, you don't use it. But the money was there, and they're like, no, he can have it. And they respected me so much that they left the door open of like, you can always come back to our company. You've always been good for us, good to us, and good for us. And you can have your money, bro. And they really looked out for me for that. Now, I ain't gonna lie, I ended up splurging that shit. Not in one day, but I ended up just like, I'm gonna use a lot of this just to take care of my mental. I may or may not travel, but I will buy a lot of Beyblades for myself and other people. And I'm gonna make sure that everyone eats around me. So I was making sure people ate. I made sure people got food and clothes and funny shit. They weren't even homeless or nothing. I just made sure that I took care of a lot of people for fun. And I was just having a ball. I was like, yeah, I'm having a ball right here. That's just me not being great with money. That's me. I'm really good with money, but I'm also terrible with it. I'm very balanced in that regard. But that's my thing right there, man. 4 pillars. And we getting over. I didn't realize I'm over here rambling, so we went over time a bit. But I will leave you with this, man. I'll leave you with this. With the 4 pillars of life, I want people to think about, money, housing, transportation, and respect. You got to put respect in there, because that shit is there whether you know it or not. For some people, it's the strongest muscle of yours, if not the most neglected one. And here's the point I'm trying to make. When you think about 4 legs of a table that keep it up, usually that's not to say there isn't 3-legged tables, but a 4-legged table, one of the legs usually gives out the soonest. The most pressure is put on one side. So a lot of times all the pressure and the payments are put on the transportation side if you're doing a lot of car payments, and if you have a gas guzzling car, if you will. Your job ain't shit, and it's very volatile with the schedule, and they don't pay you on time all the time. Or you're an entrepreneur, and then like the money comes in sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. But some people just like they lack the respect. That's probably the weakest side, or the most pressure on that side, getting the respect. For some people, it's like the housing predicament, and just like having to do housing payments, having to get AC for the house, all these things, and just getting things for the house, etc. That's probably the hardest. But that gives you the most pressure. The point I'm making is this: you look at it as a 4-legged table. That's one way to look at it metaphorically. So I want people to start thinking about that for themselves. Where's the most pressure at? Which leg is probably going to give out the most? What's going to need the repairs and the adjustments over time? Which one is it? The other aspect that I want people to think about is this. If you were to think about an animal, a 4-legged animal, the front legs are the 4 legs, if you will, right? And then you got the hind legs. The hind legs are the things that propel the animal forward. The power comes from the back legs. It moves the animal forward. You think about a car, it's the same thing. The wheels up front, they navigate, they turn left and right. The ones in the backs, stronger axles, if you will, and then those are the wheels that push you forward. Some cars are all-wheel drive. No pun intended for that, for the transportation aspect. But just think about that. Think about those 4 pillars, and think about what are the strongest. What are the 2 things that propel me? What are the hind legs that prepare me? Am I a left dominant person, a right dominant person, whatever? And just think about that. What is the things that the 4 legs are the ones in the front? Those keep things stable. You know what I mean? The things that you can paw at, if that makes sense. Just think of it that way. Even if it's legs and arms, same way. I want people to think of the 4 pillars in that regard, and really ask yourself, what is it? What is it with those things? Metaphorically, you might just be an all-around great, like a gorilla. Gorillas be just all strong on all 4. But there it is, man. We pretty much over time. We're gonna tap into the next one soon. Take a couple notes and then review some of this. But yeah, man. Also, we're doing this horizontal shit now, so we're gonna see how that plays out. All right, guys. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all, man. Peace. I'm out.